Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name's Adam Hanlon. I'm the editor for Wetpixel, and we'd like to thank CCAM for sponsoring this episode. CCAM do a range of housings, ports, and accessories, and some great strobes too. They've got a new website, so go and check them out at www.ccam.com. I'm joined today by Alex Mustard. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Adam. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you. Yeah, excellent. Always nice to see you. And we're coming around to the time of year for the Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition, and I know that the
Yeah.
it's got a badge and everything.
There you go. Badge on. You can't see it, but there you go.
No, you can see it, sort of. Yeah, there we are. There we are.
So, badge.
So Alex is a badged wildlife photographer. There you go. So it's coming out, and recently they released a preview of some of the highly commended images. So I guess we should probably start off, Alex, by asking what are they actually previewing here? What are these images about?
Well, so the Wildlife Photographer of the Year results are typically announced in the second week of October. And at that time, all the press attention is on the big category winners and overall winners in particular. But in order to kind of begin the hype train, as it were, for that, and the fact that also there's lots of things in the run up to the announcement that the museum needs images for to promote the fact that it's all going to suddenly be live, and without wanting to reveal the big winners, they usually choose a handful of images, maybe up to about 10 of the 100 that are awarded, to use as promotional images. And they're chosen, I think, primarily by the marketing team. So they're not chosen by the judges. But they're usually pictures that are quite often runners-up in the categories. There aren't official runners-up anymore, but they're kind of ones that are considered to be very strong. They usually pick pictures. At least half the pictures come from well-known photographers, because they're well aware that the names of those photographers. So that's why it's not done by the judges, because the judges still don't know who took the pictures. But the organizers, do, and they'll often choose pictures by well-known photographers. And I think quite nearly all the kind of above water pictures are taken by very well-known pros, because that also helps promote the competition.
Sort of brand recognition, really, isn't it?
I've had my black and white Jack's picture from a few years ago. That picture was chosen as a preview image. And it's quite nice when you are a preview image, because you get a bit of additional spotlight on you, which would probably get lost in the main announcement. And also you are able to tell everyone a bit early. So it means that you can start emailing people saying, "Oh, I'm going to the I'm going to be there as a winner. Are you going to be there as well?" kind of thing, because your stuff's come out. So it's actually very nice to be part of that. But it also means that you're not a category winner with that particular picture. So we should have a look at some of the marine related ones.
Yeah, so looking at them, and as is always the case when we review image competition results, we're looking at them with a kind of what's the word?
Critical eye.
A critical eye.
Thank you. To blow smoke up everyone's ass.
Yeah, no,
they're going to have plenty of that.
Yeah, it's about looking at them, and obviously that's subjective. They're very much our opinions on individual images. And I thought the first image we should start with, if that's all right, Alex, is, and forgive me, I may butcher your name, but I think it's Tina Tormanen from Finland, who's produced this image of some perch, and obviously European perch, and she's taken it while snorkeling, and there's some algae, obviously, in the water, and it's given this kind of cloud-like, slightly dream-like image that shows the fish apparently floating almost in the air, in the sky, as opposed to obviously swimming out underwater. So
when this picture came through, so I saw this picture before this announcement, because if you've got good connections with the museum, you can sometimes wangle yourself an invite to some of the social events. And the picture, I don't know if you can see, I can't see myself at the moment, is actually on the invite for some of the social events. Yeah. And when it came through, I actually, and it's a slight criticism of the image, I actually thought, the museum haven't cropped that very well. They've cropped the tails off the fish when they viewed it on the invite. But I now see, having seen the picture and the results, that's actually how the photographer presented it. Yeah. So for me, I think there's a couple of things. It's first of all, I don't, for me, it's not a jaw dropping underwater picture. And I'm actually, so when it came through, I thought that, and I also thought that it's probably in the new freshwater category. There's kind of this wetlands category, and I thought maybe the image is from that because it's kind of, I
Mm,
didn't feel it's an image that would be necessarily strong enough to be one of the best underwater images entered in the competition, but it is actually awarded in the underwater category, and
it is, yeah. Yeah.
so I was quite surprised about this. However, I think it's always important to remember with the wildlife photographer of the year that it's judged primarily by non-underwater specialists,
Yeah.
and they do react to images which they feel are different and otherworldly. And I think that this picture definitely would stand out amongst the normal standard underwater photography of, big animal with strobe against, dramatic
Yeah.
dark sea. And I
Yeah.
suspect that's why this picture has done well, is that it's got that different factor to it. And I think that's a very good reminder to all of us that competitions are about beating the other pictures.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways to stand out.
And,
And
and,
I think this
and
picture, but yeah, for me, I don't get the compositional rhythm of the fish.
no,
I can understand that maybe somebody loves their haphazard positioning in this frame, but it doesn't work for me.
I think it's. I mean, I think you're right. I think it is quite whimsical. It has a whimsical sense to it, and I think that's probably why it's appealed to the judges. But with an underwater photographer's hat on, I'm not sure that well, possibly a lesson here. I'm not sure I'd have entered it in wildlife photographer of the year, which probably means I should. So there's all sorts of sides to that.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I was trying to get to. That in
Yeah,
competition, you need to think
yeah,
strategically. You
yeah,
need you need to think what could do well.
yeah,
The wildlife photographer has awarded many fantastic freshwater images down the years by is it Michel Rogo? I can't remember his first name. Certainly Michel Loup, the French photographer as well. Both of
yeah,
whom have had absolutely stunning
yeah,
freshwater imagery.
yeah,
Um, I think that this scene and this feeling has great potential.
yeah,
I just think that it needs a really remarkable composition of fish. If
yeah,
you'd caught that once in a lifetime
yeah,
formation of these perch, I
yeah,
think the picture would. But yeah, for me, it's one that doesn't work for me.
yeah.
But that's the nature of these contests. I don't,
It is, yeah.
I certainly am very, congratulate Tina on her
Of
picture.
course. Yeah,
It's taken with a Canon R5. Um, Nice to see a mirrorless camera being used. I don't. Yeah, anyway, I I think it tells an important environmental story, which is again why I thought it might be in the wetlands category. But
yeah.
yeah, it's not. It doesn't. It's not a wow shot for me. So I'd like to move on. Really.
Yeah, I think possibly the one that we should move on to is one that definitely for me anyway is a wow shot, which is a highly commended image in the animal portrait section, taken by Richard Robinson in New Zealand of an amazing picture of the southern right whale,
Mm,
which obviously are an incredibly photogenic subject, and a very beautifully shot, amazing moment, I think. Compositionally, center of the frame, big animal center of the frame, with sort of Snell's window behind it. Obviously, it was quite shallow when this picture was taken.
mm,
And there's a story to obviously southern right whales were hunted to near extinction, and then they have rebounded, and they seem to be on the path to recovery as a species. So, it's definitely is an image about the subject.
yeah, it says that the population. The caption. It says that the population was down to just 13 breeding females.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So,
Yeah,
first things I'd say about this is the animal portraits category is traditionally the most entered category, so therefore the
yeah,
hardest to do well in. So, being highly commended in that category is, in terms of numbers, a greater achievement than being highly commended in underwater category, for example.
yeah,
It's probably got more than 10 times the number of entries. So it's
yeah,
really quite a big difference. It's not just a few pictures. I think that this picture, is a perfect portrait. You can't criticize this picture. It's got great eye contact. There's personality. There's playfulness from this calf. I love that pectoral going down to the sand. The fact it's
yeah,
stirring up the sand a bit.
Yeah.
The composition is very perfect as well, with the way Snell's window just matches the bend on the sea level. So for me, it's a very you know classic image.
Yeah.
I think there have been it's that I think you said it in introduction. It's a classic big animal shot, really.
Yeah.
You can't fault any aspect of it.
No.
It shows an amazing creature, and I think there's always room for this more classical shot in the wildlife photographer. It doesn't always have to be who can do the fanciest lighting, who can make the most creative image.
Yeah.
Sometimes just delivering a perfect image of a rarely seen species still has a place. So I'm first of all, I really love the subject, really love the photograph.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't incorporate anything photographically groundbreaking, but I'm really happy to see the wildlife photographer still awarding
Yeah.
a very classical image done very well of a subject we don't see a lot, because I think the picture is stunning, and I'm glad it's not all Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think technically, I mean, obviously, it's been shot. I assume it's been shot without strobes. There's no sign of strobes, and to be honest, strobes would be a bit of red herring with it, with a subject this size anyway. But managing to capture it with the light behind him, so the light's falling onto the whale's face, and getting Snell's in the frame. Really, the description mentions that his while the whale was investigating, his main challenge was to swim far enough from it to photograph it. So obviously, this is a frame from a memorable encounter, and I think it definitely shows that. Yeah,
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 no, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this one in the exhibition big. I think it will be a,
yeah, agreed.
backlit. I think you'll get a lot from this quite dark scene.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's going to look fantastic in the exhibition. So yeah, no, I mean you can't, it's
it's a bit of a
we'd all
showstopper.
love to have been in that
Yes,
position, seeing that animal.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And the third one I thought we should talk about, and bear in mind this is obviously from the preview selection, is highly commended from the 15 to 17-year category, which is a picture of a coconut octopus by Samuel Sloss from Italy and the States. And I'm sure many underwater photographers will be very familiar with coconut octopus and their antics. And they're an incredibly charismatic subject, lots of personality. And I think what Sam's done a great job here is basically capturing that personality. It's a very cheeky looking octopus. To my anyway, it looks like it's popping its head out to have a look and saying, what's going on. Then I think it's a nice pose. And again, technically, he's managed to. This is, I presume, was taken. I haven't actually seen where it was taken, but taken in Lembe, yeah. So classic kind of black sand macro. He's done a good job of eliminating the somewhat unsightly black sand.
I think the depth of field choice is really,
Yeah,
good use of technique. It's not just he's seen a cool subject and zapped it. The
yeah,
settings here, I think, have made a big difference and to the shot. But I think it's all about the pose. It's a very perfect pose. I love that the
yeah,
octopus is showing a bit of that cyany color, which I
yeah,
think really just helps in this particular frame pull your eye to all the suckers and the
yeah,
arms, and it allows the whole picture to work.
yeah,
It's always great to see young photographers in the young underwater photographers in the junior categories, because
yeah,
it's usually dominated not by underwater. There's not usually many underwater pictures in them for fairly obvious reasons.
yeah,
And it's not a surprise that often the photographers that do well in the young categories have parents that have links to the underwater, to the nature photography world, and that's true both above and below water.
yeah,
Surnames in the junior categories are often quite similar to surnames in the senior
yeah,
categories, who are well-known people from
yeah,
the nature photography world, and that's always been the case.
yeah,
In fact, often the young independent people don't even know the competition exists. I know I didn't discover that the Wildlife Photographer of the Year existed, despite being in the UK,
yeah,
until I was way too old to enter the junior categories.
yeah.
So it's often also the people who, and I wasn't,
An awareness. Yeah,
I just didn't know it existed, because
yeah, yeah,
it was a different world back then. It was before the internet and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so I think, but yeah, really, really good picture
yeah,
as well. and it's the same subject matter that Konstantinos Petrinos, probably 20 years ago now, was awarded with in the adult categories. He
Yeah,
had one of the very first shots of this,
yeah,
and Konstantinos is well known as the author of the sort of the original book on Lembe,
yeah,
and one of his Lembe shots of this behavior in those early days was awarded, I think, highly commended in the underwater category years ago, showing this same behavior. So yeah, really, really, really nice sort of echo of that as well.
yeah. Look, it's a lovely shot. It's a straightforward and fairly simple shot, but wonderfully created. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think what I like about it is the details are right, the background's right, the pose
yeah,
is right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So well done, Sam. And then the final marine-related image that we were going to discuss um, is, and again, forgive me if I butcher his name, Srikanth Manipuri from India, and it's in the ocean's bigger picture, and it's actually a very shocking image. I think it's a drone shot. Of marlin and sailfish at that obviously been caught. They're lined up on a beach or in an area, and I think for me, possibly the most shocking thing about this image is that the majority of people never actually see a marlin or sailfish in their entire lives.
Mm.
And I guess we shouldn't be social, but even people that spend a lot of time in the oceans probably don't see them.
I've
And
never seen a marlin.
I have seen a marlin, um, but again, they're they're infrequent encounters. They're often at great distance, and this is to see them on this sort of scale, dead on a beach, is actually, well, to me, I think is particularly shocking.
Mm. Oh, and also this is just one place, and the
Mm,
title of the image is just one day's catch.
yeah,
It's it says a lot, and I think it's important to open people's eyes to things that go on unseen. It's also, I think, a timely. I mean, I think the image is very impactful. I
yeah,
think it's a very timely image as well. While the UN thrashes out
yeah,
policies relating to the exploitation of the open ocean and the protection of the open ocean.
yeah,
And I think pictures like this will be really powerful in that. And I think it's the wildlife photography is definitely transitioned over the last 4 or 5 years to having a much higher content of photojournalist type work in it.
yeah,
Rather than the pure wildlife photography. In fact, lots of wildlife photographers now would rather be taking images like this than pictures of the animals, wild and free, because they feel those images are more valuable to the world.
yeah,
And I think the platform of the wildlife photographer, one of the things you know when you win in it, is every single image becomes so well known, and
mm,
they literally are seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world. Every
mm,
single shot, not just the big winners, are seen by billions of people around the world,
yeah,
and they do have is and I think when you do get the chance to get pictures in it, it is an incredible platform to be able to tell these important stories from. And
yeah,
so, it's great to see a picture like this. And I think it's great that we've got this ocean's bigger picture category now, which
yeah,
gives space for pictures like this
yeah,
within it. Plus, hopefully some celebratory images as well. It will be really interesting to see how that category progresses. I entered it in its first year, but this last year I didn't enter any pictures into it, really because I still don't have a feel for what is likely to be successful in it.
yeah,
And I felt it was just, and it's also not an area of my photography that is a big part of what I'm shooting. And so I kind of wanted to see. Last year, Jennifer Hayes won this category with the harp seal, big panoramic harp seal shot,
yeah,
and I on the ice. And I think I'd like to see how it progresses a little bit more. I think to understand quite what's what the category is chasing. But certainly pictures like this, I think, are a perfect fit for it.
I think you did touch on something. I think it's very important that, I mean, obviously most people watching this will be aware of the threats that face the oceans, but we also need to inspire. And I think this is a call to action picture. It definitely is a picture that says, there's something going on here that really is very worrying. But I think, I hope that in the other, and obviously we don't know, but in the other awarded images in this category, there's also some that do give hope. That say that that there are successes, and there are, like the story about the southern right whales. That is a conservation success. And I think if we constantly play the threats and don't play the fact that there are successes and there is beauty and wonderful things in the ocean still, we run a risk of shooting ourselves in the foot somewhat as well. Yeah. So time will tell. We'll know.
I think almost every picture in the wildlife photographer has a conservation theme to it now, because it's almost impossible to see wildlife without there being a conservation angle to why that wildlife is there, or whether that wildlife is bouncing back, or whether it's being rubbed down. And so I think most of the pictures have some sort of conservation narrative, whether they're true conservation photography pictures or just very much pure wildlife photography pictures like the right whale. It's still got a conservation narrative.
Absolutely, yeah. And just technically, obviously, it's a drone shot. It's with a Mavic 2, so Mavic 2 Pro. So a fairly conventional consumer drone, nothing too exciting and exotic, but obviously just an incredible scene, and I think quite a disturbing scene, really.
Yeah, so. About really having an eye in a place where we don't normally have an eye.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful, thank you, Alex. That's a great roundup. You're on the inside. When are the final results announced, roughly?
So I'm going to. It probably says on this piece of paper here. So the press preview is on Wednesday, the 12th of October.
Right.
So okay. I think maybe it's the evening of the 11th in the UK that their winners are announced, and then they hit the press that morning on the Wednesday the 12th.
So I'm not sure of our schedules, but we'll try and do something about the winning images, or certainly the winning marine images, once they're announced.
I've not heard any. I'm not going to say it, but I've not heard any gossip. Some years, you hear people saying, "Oh, I'm coming to England next month." What that? I've not heard anyone say that. Well, I know one photographer who's over, but apparently not for this. But maybe that's a red herring. And so it's always quite fun to try and figure out, from what you hear around, if people are suddenly, I'll be there or this. So I don't know. I've not heard any whispers on the grapevine about who's done well.
We'll wait and see. It's an exciting time. So yeah, wonderful. Thanks very much, Alex. Thanks for all that input, and thanks again to CCAM for sponsoring this episode. The sponsor support is super important to us for these, so please, we thank them very much. Please feel free to add any comments in the comment section, or drop us a like if you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you again soon.